Hey there, writers and muse daters. I am really excited to be here today with Barbara Patty. Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Barbara's got an amazing message for us today about never giving up. So we're going to talk about that today. Really excited to do that. But first, Barbara, give us a little bit of the overview. What are you writing and why are you writing it?
I'm writing a romance, but I've got just a little tiny bit in it that is a crime because I like romances that do more than boy meets girl, girl meets boy. They fall in love, fall out, and everything ends happily ever after. I have a few things in there that I really like. I'm having fun doing this. I've always been a writer. I used to write in secret because it wasn't considered an important career. I even learned how to do shorthand.
Love that. I love that. So now you're writing this romance. You've always been a writer, but now you're a little bit more serious about it than you ever have been at any other point in your life. Tell us about that.
Well, some of the writing that I've done has been just short stories, short memoirs. Oh, and by the way, I'm even a cover girl. One of my groups did It's Worth the Struggle. Mm-hmm. And this is inspiration for contemporary writers. And they decided that they wanted to have a cover here. And this is me.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. And I wrote how it was when I was writing, how I learned how to kind of write in the dark, even to the paper and keep writing. And I've written, and with this one, I thought this story was so good for writers that I developed a workbook and I did a memoir on the shores of Detroit. And that won some type of award, but that's been quite some time. And that was based on a story from my father. When he was ill, he started talking about his childhood. And I started writing notes and I wrote a memoir based on what he said and read it to him, and he loved it. Of course, he passed before it was published, but he loved it. I've written poetry, I've written short stories, but I wasn't happy. I knew that I wanted more. I wanted to write something full length. Each time I started, I would get pushback from other people, professional writers, my writers group. I just said I would never give up, and I didn't.
Mm-hmm. Then one. So let's explore that a little bit, because I know that you've got something that I talk a lot about, right? Feedback horror stories. Tell us a little bit about some of your feedback horror stories.
Oh my goodness. I was taking a writing class at a college. I won't name it because I like the school. It's just this one professor who was a professional writer. And we put our stories out there for us. Just mine was just the beginning of a story. She hated it. She said all of that could be done in one paragraph, but I was building up the emotions in that story, which was very difficult for me. I'm not good with doing that. At least I wasn't. But she said that I was being judgmental about one of the scenes I had in there. The scene was, or the statement that I had was too young to be snatched away from family. And she thought I was being judgmental. I couldn't understand that at all. My classmates came to me, some in tears, saying, "We loved what you wrote." So it's like I was getting a mixed message. I think I realized later on that what it was is that she just didn't like the story. It was about slavery. And I think she just did not like the idea of that story.
Right. Well, and either way, that wasn't helpful to moving your writing career forward.
No, not even a little bit. Fortunately, I didn't dump the story. I just put it on the back burner. I intend to get back to it sometime in the future, but I just put it on the back burner. And some of my other horror stories was one lady who was saying, oh, you can't write it like this. You have to do this. It's like, not really, because that's not my story. And if
Mm,
I had followed her advice, it would have wound up being her story and not my story. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, really important points. And then at some point, you and I got on a call and things changed. Tell us about
Yes.
that.
Oh my goodness. What the reason I got on the call is I got your book. And it was at the Writer's Digest conference in New York.
Mhm.
And they were handing out copies of the book, and I looked at it and it said storytelling for pantsers. And I'm going, okay. And I started reading it. I'm going, she's talking to me. She's saying what I'm feeling. I
Mhm.
like the way you wrote it because you put humor in there too. A lot of the other books that I have read, and I have so many, you've seen my office,
Mhm.
where was actually my storage room, but I sometimes use it as an office, where I have dozens and dozens of books that did not move me. Yeah, I got a little information that was helpful, but your book spoke to me. That's why I got on the call. I have not regretted that at all.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing that. And, you know, I know the book because I wrote
Yes.
it, and you know the book because you read it. But for people who are watching or listening who are unfamiliar, what was it about the book that said, you know what, I think this person can help me? I think this is, the person I want to chat with.
The one thing that you emphasize is you don't have to start your story from an outline. I'm a pantser. I can't do outlines. I know I had to do it in school, hated it from the beginning. But you're saying in your book that you have an idea, you could put it out. You need to write it, you need to flush it out. And it's the way you do it with your humor. You have that subtle humor, and you know I like that. Uh, and it's an easy read, and it is very helpful, and you do address how to arrange things later on in the book. I just enjoy it.
Great. And so some people who might have seen out there, because they picked up storytelling for pantsers or they've seen me speak at a conference, know that they can get on a call with me, but they might think, "Ooh, I'm a little scared of that." Let's pull back the curtain. You can snitch on me. What's it like to get on that call with me?
Oh, the call was very encouraging. I like that you don't tell us we have to do something. What you do is you make suggestions, you give us ideas, you will give us questions that we have to ask.
That's great. And so from that call, you enrolled in the writing gym. You became a
Yes.
member of the writing gym after I invited you in, and we have been working on your novel. So tell the people who are watching and listening, what has that work been like?
Oh, the work is just wonderful. One of the things that I do enjoy is that you give us modules. That means we can go on the video, read or listen to what it is you're suggesting, giving us information, ideas, and encouraging us. Then there is the salon. I enjoy it so much. You give us a prompt and we write for 20 minutes for the prompt, and 20 minutes can go by very fast. Ask Odell. But then once we're done with writing from that particular prompt, then we listen to you discuss how we give feedback. No questions, no negativity. It's what did you like about the piece? What made you think more? Picking out words that you like, whatever. Then each of us reads our story, one story at a time, and then we make suggestions, not suggestions, we um, say what we like about it, etc. And
Mhm.
then we go on to the next one, and it is so encouraging. That's the another thing I like
Is it
about the gym.
encouraging? And maybe you can help me here, Barbara, because when I talk to people about salon, I have a really hard time communicating what's so magical about it. How do you explain that?
The positivity more than anything else. There's no negativity in salon. And you also get feedback of what other writers hear in your story. Some things you may not think is that important winds up being extremely important. And that encourages we as writers to do even more of the same thing.
Really good point. So we're here to celebrate you. Let's hear about, from day one, your very first day in the writing gym, first day of school, to today. What kinds of changes have you seen over time?
Oh my goodness. Number one, I have added a lot more emotions in my stories, which as a child growing up, I was taught that I had to hold back. Don't bring attention to yourself, essentially, is what it is. But as a writer, we have to bring attention to what we have on the paper. And that means I have to look inside myself, think about what I was feeling.
And how have you found the courage to be vulnerable through that?
Through you and the others in the writing gym, just encouraging me. One of the stories that I wrote, it was a little bit difficult because it was the slave story, or built kind of on the slave story. And for me to go back to that kind of idea is like, okay, am I going to get slammed again? No, I wasn't. I was encouraged. And that was beautiful.
Yeah, I remember that piece. It was really moving, really powerful. The first time you wrote about
Thank
that,
you.
I mean, people were just like, the eyes just popped.
Thank you. And that was more than just a little bit encouraging.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. And so, we were talking about the vulnerability and the power of community. A lot of the writers who come to me, if they're brave enough to say so, one of the things that they say is that they're afraid that their writing isn't good enough. And I think that you and I had some of those conversations
Oh,
early
yeah.
on. How have you gone on a journey with your inner critic around that feeling?
Oh, my inner critic is upset because she doesn't have much to say now.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've come a long way from maybe I could write, maybe I can do this, to, oh, I got something else I want to put in here.
Infinite happiness from your experience. Tell us a little bit about that and how it's, impacted other areas of your life to be in the writing gym.
Oh my goodness. I smile a lot more. And the reading has helped. I've been doing a lot of reading that encourages putting in more emotions and more physicality. But even my husband notices that I smile a lot more. I giggle a lot more. Ooh.
I love that. And I know that you have been an amazing advocate of the writing gym. What are some of the things that you share with the writers that when you say, look, guys, this is a really great solution. This is a great place. What are you sharing with them?
Well, first, I told them about the book. I told them about you. I told them about what it's like being in the writing gym, and I've tried to encourage them to join. And I know some of them are kind of concerned, they're not sure, but I'm hoping that they will join even before my book is published. But after it's published, I know they're going to want to join.
That's right. Once they see you getting the same results that so many of the other writing gym participants get, they'll say, oh, okay, this
Exactly.
is for real.
Exactly. And
I
I
love
can't
that.
wait for that to happen.
I love it. And, so you have been working on your novel with us. And in the interim, we're going to have this online writing retreat, right? So
Yes.
you're just like continuing to be a valuable member of this community. Why? What inspires you to keep on participating, to participate in new ways? What are you getting out of that? What are you giving to it? What's the gym community like?
Oh, the gym community is so positive, and that's something I can't emphasize enough. The positivity, the encouragement. It's like when we are on Salon, we encourage each other with our with the stories. When we are just looking at our celebrations, we like to piggyback on what each individual person celebrates. And the celebrations are important. It's very important for us to learn how to brag about what we're doing. And that's not something I was brought up doing. You don't brag, but that's important so that we can help each other, help ourselves, and learn how to be ready for publishing, because we're going to have to stand up in front of people and talk about where we started with our book, et cetera, et cetera.
I love it. That's such a powerful lesson. Thank you so much. Share with the people who are watching and listening, what kinds of things do you say when people bring up concerns about, am I ready to invest in myself? Is it really going to be worth it? Should I spend the money? How do you talk to people about that?
Well, I try to tell them, are you really concerned about becoming a writer? Is this a hobby? Is it a habit? Or is it something that you want as a career?
Mhm.
Then if you want it as a career, you're going to have to invest in it. You may have to take your time with it, but you're going to have to invest not just your time, but also your money. And it's important.
Yeah, absolutely. In the same way that many of us invested in college or trade school or some kind of
Sure.
training early in our lives to have some type of trade.
Right. Absolutely. And they have to decide, is this something serious for you?
Yeah. Well, and that's really the cutoff, isn't it? Like, how serious are you this week? But I mean, I think it's really about deciding how serious you are and if you really want a traditional publishing career or if
Exactly.
you want something else for yourself.
Right, exactly. And it may be a difficult decision, but it's a decision that they're really going to have to sit and grapple with.
Absolutely. And just to share, to celebrate you a little bit, how did you decide that traditional publishing was right for you versus any of the other options out there?
I looked at the possibility of self-publishing and I knew this was not the avenue for me. Um, Sometimes you wind up getting into like vanity press. Well, they'll print anything.
Mhm.
And that's not what I want. I want something for real.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And to publish time and time again and have that relationship with your agent and your editor. And yeah. Oh,
Exactly. And what you are teaching us is something that we can use not just for the novel that we're working on now, but on something that we can use for the future. And as a matter of fact, going through the story that I have, I know what my second novel is going to be about.
mhm. Oh, I love that. I love that. And let's come around to where we started, Barbara, which, you shared your t-shirt with me, which says never, ever give up. Um, Tell us a little bit about that philosophy and how that has impacted your life and how the writing gym has helped you to stay in that momentum of not giving up.
Oh, once I make up my mind to do something, I'm not going to give it up. I have struggled my entire life doing things the way I wanted to do them, and I'm still doing it. I will not give up. I'm going to continue. Each time I add a new scene, a new character, or change something, which was really difficult for me, but I find that doing that has helped me move forward. I just enjoy it. I'm having a great time with it. And I know I'm not going to give up.
Mm, wonderful. Barbara, I'm so proud of the progress you made. I am just joyous to have you in the writing gym. You're an amazing part of our community, and we just love to celebrate everything that you've accomplished so far. And we look forward to celebrating even more with where you're headed.